You're alone, driving through thick fog at 4 a.m. when a cyclist appears in front of you. You slam the brakes, but as you get closer, he vanishes, only to reappear on your car's hood, reaching out for you. This is just the start of one woman's terrifying encounter with the afterlife. Stay with me. You won't believe what happened next. This is my story of contact with life after death. I am a 45-year-old woman in Victoria, Australia. I was driving through Cranbourne on my way to Devon Meadows, probably between 4 and 5 a.m. sometime in winter 2005. The morning was a very foggy one. I was on the South Gippsland Highway, and I could barely see. Then I spotted a cyclist some way in front of me. I slammed on the brakes, but my car didn't look like it was going to stop in time. As I drew closer, it started appearing to me like the cyclist was going backward. Then it became evident that he was transparent. He ended up sitting on my bonnet by the time my car came to a stop. It looked like he was made out of a kind of golden light. He stretched his hand towards me through my intact windshield. He seemed to want me to take it, and I did. It felt spongy and strange, like nothing else I've touched. After a moment, he vanished. This seemed to invite other ghosts in. I was haunted for the rest of the morning. I saw a disembodied torso appear in a window, terrifying me, and also a ghost man with a ghost dog on a veranda. The ghost man was an older one who wore a white undershirt-type singlet. I believe the ghost dog was mostly white, with some black patches. They have been seen by at least one other person that I know of. I searched TAC records and reached out to Cranbourne locals via Facebook, looking to find out as much as I could. I finally traced the cyclist encounter to an accident that occurred at about 5 a.m. on July 2nd, 1990. The victim was 25 and due to turn 26 in August. His name was Jason. He was riding his bike to work, having lost his license, at Coles Warehouse in Hampton Park, very early in the morning, was hit from behind by a red Ford, though some locals seemed to think it was a truck, and killed. He was rather a lost soul, and had a sad background, but did have some good friends. He spent a lot of time on his own despite this. When I met him, I felt like he wanted my comfort and maybe my help. There was a lonely, sad feeling about him. One of Jason's friends kindly gave me information about Jason's life and death, as well as giving me his identity. Other Cranbourne locals have also assisted me in piecing this together. It is the only cyclist fatality that ever occurred in all of Casey at that time of day, according to TAC records. The records were not accurate with respect to Jason's age, though. I know that because I've seen a photo of his grave, which I've since visited. His friend also told me that TAC just uses initial estimates from the accident scenes to record the age of victims. I've been told that others have seen my ghost cyclist as a rider in a fog who then vanished. I believe he probably reached out to me because we had certain commonalities, on top of my being there on a foggy winter early morning, much like the one he died on. Also, I was 26 when I met him, nearly the same age he was at death. We were about 15 years apart in age, and it may even have been the 15-year anniversary of his death when I met him. As a child, my family moved around a lot. I never knew why until I was an adult and realized it had much to do with my mother's ADHD. Maybe she was running from something. My older sister says she was protecting us. Anyway, we moved nearly 30 times before I graduated high school. In many of the homes we lived in, I saw things that only I could see. This one place is among the most remarkable. I was 14. It was 1984 and summertime. My family had just moved into a single-wide trailer in the large trailer park. Immediately, I began to see and hear things, and it took me a few days to realize they were paranormal. I would lay in my bed at night and hear loud growls coming from under my bed. From my room, I would also hear my mother in the kitchen and smell food cooking in the early hours, pans clanking and such, and go into the kitchen and the lights are off and no one is there. This happened many times, and everyone in the house says they experienced this at least once. My mother would wake us up in the middle of the night with the door wide open screaming, "Leave us alone, please just leave." This happened a lot. I remember my aunt coming over to take care of us because my mom was in the hospital and she made us all sleep together in the living room because she was scared. The most terrifying experience was early one morning. I was wide awake and lying in bed with the room door wide open. Everyone was asleep, and I could see down the hall into the kitchen. I saw a short, dark figure with a hunchback rise off the kitchen table and slowly walk down the hall toward my door. When it reached my door, it stared at me briefly and turned away. I was terrified, gasping for breath. It was just dark with no features. I believed it to be a woman, but I'm not sure. Anyway, we moved shortly after. This is the only house we lived in where everyone saw things. Usually, it was just me. Something is really wrong with our new house. Okay, so this happened 2 nights ago. I awoke suddenly and saw it was 3 a.m. The house was super quiet, and I was by myself since my hubby was at work. I rubbed my eyes, convincing myself it was just another restless night. But as I settled back into bed, a strange feeling washed over me, and it wasn't because I watched ghost encounters, lol. I looked around the dimly lit room. Then I heard a soft whisper, barely audible, but distinct enough to send chills down my spine. I sat up, straining to listen. It seemed to be coming from the hallway, and I began sweating profusely. My PJs were soaked. "Hello?" I called out. No answer. I tried to convince myself it was just my imagination, but curiosity tugged at me since I was alone. I put my legs over the side of the bed and stood up, but still under the comforter. As I crept down the hallway, the whisper grew clearer, and I noticed a light down the hall toward the living room. My heart raced, and I literally thought I was going to have a heart attack. I had to breathe because my mouth was turning into a cotton mouth. I turned the corner. In the darkness of the corner by the lamp stood a dark shadow figure. Sweat began dripping off my arm and down my back. Even my hair was wet. I could barely breathe, frozen in place. The whispers were barely noticeable, but it seemed to say, "Help me." I was so scared I was frozen and drenched in sweat. It suddenly moved toward my nanny's old mirror hanging on the wall. My heart pounded in my chest, and I stumbled back, falling backward into the hallway onto the floor. My comforter was stuck and intertwined between my legs, my arms unable to move and my knees numb. I crawled back to my room so fast that I had bruises all over my knees and shins. I don't think I ever moved that fast. I jumped back into my bed under the covers and was unable to get the courage to change out of my wet clothing. I stayed under the covers until daylight and called out of work because of the lost sleep. I don't know what to do. This is the first paranormal encounter at my house, and I had to share this one. We just moved into this house 1 month ago. Any suggestions? I'm literally terrified to the core. I'm also going to see about putting up some cameras, and just like that, she was left lying in bed, paralyzed with fear, soaked in sweat, questioning every sound, every shadow in her new home. What would you do if this happened to you? Could you stay another night in that house, or would you pack up and leave? Let us know your thoughts or any personal experiences with the paranormal in the comments below. If these real-life encounters send shivers down your spine and you crave more terrifying stories, hit that subscribe button and make sure to turn on notifications so you don't miss out on our next eerie tale. And if you ever hear a whisper in the middle of the night, you might want to think twice before checking it out. Until next time, sleep tight if you can.